Hello, we're now going to move on to negotiating. Being a good negotiator takes a little bit of practice, and I have a lot of different techniques in the book about negotiating. I'm going to go over some key issues that I think that are really important. The first thing I think you should do is everyone should go and get something to read. It's probably one of the most important things. Reading a couple books on getting your negotiating skills up. Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. I mean, there's quite a few of them. One big thing in negotiating, I think, and that makes me a pretty good negotiator throughout these years, is I think that if you're not attached to the outcome, which is very difficult at the beginning of your career, but the least attached you are to the outcome, it just seems like negotiating becomes very easy. The more you are attached to a deal, the harder it is for you to negotiate. The more you are detached from a deal and look at helping people, just things happen and people can read that. So if you're more attached to the deal than the seller, they're going to feel that, and they're not going to think that you have their best interest in heart, and they're not going to take any advice from you whatsoever. So you always want to fight to get the best price for your buyer and for your seller, but you always want to be smart too, where you're not going to be too cocky and upset with people when they don't take a deal. You need to kind of lead them into the best direction that would be for them to accept the contract and accept maybe a little less to go on with their plans now, especially if they get a strong buyer. You want to listen very carefully to people. You want to always ask them, what would work with this contract? Can we work it, try to even negotiate a little bit? Or is there something we can do? What could we give? And just try to just listen to them and listen to why they're not taking it. Sometimes doing that and just pointing out the importance of their goal to get where they're going or to get the move done sometimes can get them back into feeling, hey, you know what, we can work with this person. Try to get the seller out of the mindset that it's an insult to him if that you get a low offer. You have to tell them, well, it's better that you should be more insulted about the people that looked at the property and didn't buy it than the person that's going to give you an offer. Just because the offer isn't good, at this point and unacceptable to you, let's try to work and get the best deal possible. Then look at the other terms, at the strength of the buyer. If the buyer is really weak and the contract is weak with a weak down payment, then I would push a lot less than if it was a very strong cash contract. Say we're $5,000 apart, they have a big down payment closing quickly. I would try to press a little bit more on that. So you want to look at the terms of the deal. You want to really kind of just step back and make sure you're doing the right thing for the seller, not for you. You want to ask questions, and you want to be able to see if this is going to work for them and all the things that you can do to get them to that point to get the deal done. And you want it to be a win-win situation. You don't want the seller to feel like they've had to give everything, or the buyer to have to keep coming up, or you want it to be a situation where everybody feels happy at the end. Now, you want to be able to build the bridge and the benefits of the offer. You want to be able to bridge it together, meaning that you want to be able to say, okay, this offer is for 100 and you'll be happy for it with 110. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? And you want to try to tie them down, where do you think we could counter this offer? And try to get some answers. Another close is the Benjamin Franklin close, where you put a line down the middle of a paper and just say that this is what Benjamin Franklin used to do. He would say the benefits and the cons, or the pros and the cons. And then you would list all the things that were good about the deal and all the things that were bad about the deal, and then make a decision about that. You want to use things with the feel, felt, found, and tie down. I understand how you feel. And I had another couple looking at a property, and they felt just like you. They were very nervous. It was their first buy, and they decided, they found that they just decided to go with it, and they wanted to buy the property. And even though it was a little bit more monthly, they said in the end they're going to make it up in equity. And now I've sold the property within 2 years, and they've gained $50,000 in equity. So wouldn't that be nice if that happens to you? So something like that, something with a story, with the past, something that's happened to you in the past, and how they can feel better in the end. But it really has to be true. You want to have it in your heart that you're doing the right thing for them, and you're not just conning them. So, having good negotiating skills is, you want people to get to the ultimate where everybody wins. Also, with presentations on people, I said it earlier when you're presenting a buyer's offer, you want to let the seller know about the people. You don't want to just throw a contract in front of them and say, do you want it or not? You want to explain it a little bit. You want to say, I have an offer, it's not quite what you wanted, but it's not real low, and I'm hoping we can work it and get it, to a positive meeting of the minds. I have great buyers. I have John and Sally. John's at the fire department, Sally's a nurse. They really love the property. They have 2 beautiful kids. They're really excited. They're well qualified. The loan officer said they could spend maybe up to even $10,000, a little bit more, so that if there's anything that comes up, they're more than qualified. All their papers done with the loan officer. They're putting down $10,000, all of the money to close. They're going for an FHA loan. Like I said, they're all done and ready to go. I know that they're asking you to pay $5,000 in closing costs and come down $5,000. And I know that's a little more than you would want to do, as we've talked. And you told me that, you'd be happy, you only want it to come down $2,000. Now, what do you think if we go back with them and we come down and pay their $5,000 in closing costs, but do it at the full price? So you want to give alternatives. And then if you go back with that and meeting them halfway and they won't take that, and then they come back again and they haven't come back, then you would go more into say they came up $2,500. Over $2,500, do you want to stop your move from happening now? And what if we can't get this price again? So you want to, be able to talk to them if they're willing to put it on the table and let you try to sell it. And a lot of things that you're going to find are going to be depending on the market too. If you have 10 offers on it, you're not going to go over and beat up your seller. If you know that you're going to have 5 offers over the weekend, you're not going to run over on Friday because you get a contract to get it signed, and you try to delay it and put some time in for the weekend to see if you can get a more solid deal for your client. You want to treat your client like you would like to be treated. So, just running over to get a contract signed that isn't a very strong deal isn't the smart thing to do a lot of times. Now, if we're in a really bad market and you're lucky to get an offer, yeah, you're going to run over there and you're going to be trying to get that offer signed as soon as possible. But don't forget, you always can take a risk of losing a deal too. So you want to pay attention on how long it is for acceptance. Now, another thing with negotiating, if he gets past that acceptance date, the buyer can back out of that. So let the seller know you don't want to be late on your offers and have the seller lose an offer. On the other hand, if they lose something that it's pretty weak from the beginning, so what have you really lost? So, like I said, the less attached to things you are, the better. Counsel and treat people like you want to be treated. Some high-risk negotiating tactics are just like a take it or leave it tactic. Having an attitude. It's ridiculously low. Give me a good counter offer. It's great price, poor terms. You have everything. Limited time or rush. You take all the time you want. That's a problem because, like I said, they could just walk away. I give up and just walk away. Just split the difference. That's another way you can get them to come out, like we just said, just split the difference. Let me help out. So basically you could pay some of the closing or whatever that is. Or I need a sale. That's like ridiculous. And that's going to really be a problem for people. Some little things that you can do to kind of negotiate, little low risk negotiations. You can say, you can solve some of the minor issues first, like the closing date would be one minor issue. Okay, well, they want to close in 30 days and you need 60 days to be fully out and moved. So let's see if we can get them to agree to that. It's imperfect for everyone, so let's see how we can make it, make a win-win so everybody can win something. Help me to help us. So if someone's being very hard-nosed to and not accepting anything, you might say that to them. Help me to help us. Do you really want to sell this house? Do that, and then if you could just say, well, the buyer has changed their mind. They're not going to buy the property. The takeaway close is probably one of the most effective. The takeaway. In a similar situation, I had owners that felt just like you. So those are really good things, like we just were talking about before. Feel, felt, found. So use those situations. I had somebody, and a seller, they felt just like you. They felt that the offer was low, and I felt I agreed with them, and I thought the offer was low, and then they passed up on the deal, and then they ended up having to take $5,000 less. So they found that their first offer was their best offer, and you don't want to be just like that. So you want to treat the offer seriously. So just use those, practice those. Think about what you're going to say if you have some objections thrown up by the seller when you're presenting offers. Don't be afraid to present low offers. You have to present all offers to a seller. If the seller comes back and just say, I have to present you all offers, but I've found a lot of times in the past people come up, and if they don't, we haven't lost anything. So is there anything we can do to try to work on this deal? This is the good things about this deal. And try to find some good stuff in it. If it's just ridiculously low with ridiculous terms, then just, write it off. A good thing to do, we talked about it before, is there's a script for preventing buyers and sellers remorse. So you may want to practice that. This says too, when you're writing an offer, assume they're going to write it for full price. And obtain reasonable offers and realistic counter offers, and counsel the buyers to be realistic. I wouldn't assume full price if the price, I would assume full price if the market's hot, but I wouldn't assume full price if it's overpriced or that it's going to come back being with a low appraisal. I would run comps because it looks bad on you as an agent when things aren't comping out. So you want to be careful there to make sure that your buyer hasn't spent $1,000 in all these things and then they don't get the house, because that can really be upsetting to them. Creative problem-solving language. There's just things in here that you can read and practice so you can try to work at solving problems. You want to, when you're doing to maximize your success in writing contracts and negotiating, you want to really be specific. Make it where the buyer and seller understand the terms of the contract and what is broken down, the as-is and how it works. The buyer that, if repairs come up, the seller can just not make them. So just let them know that, that can happen, but do that up front. And that'll ensure that, when things come down the road, that they're at least informed on everything on the contract. You want to request large deposits. I learned this early in my career when I was up against another agent presenting an offer face-to-face, and he said to me, you work very hard in this business. If you want to write good deals and get your deals accepted, put down large deposits. And I've followed that through my career. Now, you want to remember one thing. I would put the large deposit after the inspection, because you don't want to have anything have their money held up for inspection issues. So what I always do is say $1,000 and then $9,000 or $19,000 depending on the price. If they only have $7,000, then I would ask for all of it. And the only thing they can do is they can, say that I only want to put up this or whatever. But they'll tell you. So just explain to them that the more money that they have up, the more qualified and strong they look. So you want them to appear strong when they're up against other people. The faster the closing, it's the better the contract. If you're writing up a cash deal with an investor, some things that I always do is you tell them that you'll close and do a lease back to the seller to give them time and they have all their money up front. So that might push you in front of another investor. So for example, you may want to say 10-day closing, cash. The seller has a right to stay in the house up to 30 or 60 days rent-free. That's a good offer. So that's really something powerful that they can start looking if they haven't found something to make them to take your offer over others. Acknowledge moving costs. You want to request credit reports. So you want to just actually ask for credit reports and let them know that you have them run with your lender. If you're with Shane, you don't have to worry about that. But ask what the credit score is. When you talk with their lender, if they're not using yours, ask them what the credit score is. Ask what the other client, when they're buying your listing, what is their credit score? So you're aware of these things. Prepare for buyer and seller's remorse. We just keep discussing that because that happens. What happens is you prepare them too, that a lot of people are going to start talking about real estate, and you're going to get all this advice from people that have no idea or have sold a house once in 10 years. Our office sells thousands of homes. I personally have sold how many homes, or my broker sold thousands of homes. And the bottom line is that we know that you're going to have people telling you you're paying too much. But you've seen everything out there. You see the competition, so you're the best judge of these things. So don't let people scare you. You're well protected, and you want to, like I said, I had sold someone a house a couple of years ago, and they made a lot of money in a couple of years. So you're buying good. There's not that it doesn't happen all the time, but you can't guarantee that. But in a good market, and the way that the market has been, you should have a little growth year after year. So there's nothing better than home ownership for tax purposes and just to have your own home and be able to do everything, and then you get to enjoy equity by keeping it. For the longer you keep it, the more you build up money and equity. Okay, we do that. Attend loan application. Well, that's hard to do today because most things are done online, but you can call up with a follow-up. Make sure. If it's Shane, you don't have anything to worry about because he's going to have them online. You're going to be in touch with him. If it's another loan officer, you need to be calling all the time, physically all the time, because you're going to have to be on top of that deal. Because I'm telling you that most likely it's not closing on time. It's most of the time. So you want to definitely know what's going on with the loan. You want to prepare everyone for extensions if there's going to need one. You need to get that. That's an extension to the contract because the lender can't get it done on time. You call a week early. You know he isn't getting it done. Ask for the week then for an extension. Don't go to the last day where the seller's moved out in the moving truck and you're like, oh, we need an extension today. That's unprofessional. You need to know what's going on a week before. You should be asking for these extensions prior. So hopefully if you're using my company title, it won't happen, or Shane, you'll be good. So, but if you're not, then you need to be on top of that and ask for those extensions. Maintain communication. Be following up on your loan diligently. Watching, what's going on, making sure that everything's getting handled and done correctly. You want to keep written communication of all things going on in the deal, when you've talked to the lender, on everything. And you want to follow up with your party and let them know all the things that are going on. If the lender needs a bank statement, call them and tell them. Be watching what's going on. You want to attend the closing always. That's the best place for referrals, and that's where you can adopt the other end. So if you have the listing and a buyer comes in, 90% of the time that buyer will never hear from the realtor again. So you might just say, or when you go get their telephone number and then put them into your database and start to build this sphere like we were talking about. That's called an adopted client. Because what's going to happen is the realtor's going to lose touch with them. Now you can follow up with them in a month and just say, is everything okay with the house? Good. And then you can follow up with 3 months, and then you start to take them as a client. They'll even forget they had another realtor because you'll be the only one calling to see if everything is okay. Start mailing them. They've met you. They're part of your sphere now. Keep a positive attitude. You always want to be positive with people. You never want them to see you sweat. You never want them to see you get upset as much as you do. Scream afterwards. But try to maintain control at all times. Try to let things not bother you. Try to stay as professional as possible. if you need to stand up for yourself, I'm not saying that you need to stand up for yourself if you're getting abused, but you know, you don't want to have an attitude because they throw you an objection. When they do that, they're looking for that. So you want to, you know, you want to always smile, maintain eye contact, listen to them, and then try to handle whatever they're throwing back at you. Anticipate or handle objections up front. If there's anything that you see coming up, handle it before you get further and then have a problem. And minimize changes. If the less you have to add or ask for when a contract is done, the more solid. And remove any contingencies in writing. Say that the loan contingency is done. Say that that they have sold the property and it was contingent upon the successful closing. You can remove that out of the contract. But that's about it with negotiating. The main thing with negotiating to me is that you are a middleman. You're not a part of the transaction, so you need to act like one. You have to maintain control. You have to try to keep people's emotions out of the transaction because people do get emotional. People could have had this property for 20 years. They could have brought their kids up there. This move is very emotional to them. So you want to remain on their side. You want to remain trying to do the best deal, get them the best deal, but also you want to remain keep educating them on what's going on and help them not make a crazy mistake by not accepting a contract that's really good and that would be in their best interest to take, because it is an emotional time for them. And two, when people come in with lowball offers, realize this is their house and they get insulted. So you have to prepare them not to be insulted. This is a business dealing, and you need to kind of detach as hard as it is and try to keep a level head about it and look at whatever they're getting offered and then see if you can work with it or not. Look at all the other terms, just not the price, because I've seen many low deals go together at great prices and you'd be surprised. So if somebody really loves a house, of course they're going to come in low. Everybody does. And so when you explain that to the seller, as a buyer, you're going to be doing the same thing. But it doesn't mean you're not going to buy the house. If they love the house, they'll come up to our price. So we can go back higher and then try to come to the meeting of the minds. So, there's a lot to do with negotiating. You'll get better in time. If you have any questions about it, you can ask me. And in the meantime, buy some books about it. But like I said, the biggest thing is being non-attached to the outcome. Don't put their interest before your own. And a lot of times when you're just starting out and you're broke, that's a hard thing to do. So once you do that, you're going to have great success. Thank you and have a great day.